3 years ago, my family decided I had stolen $12,600 from my 88-year-old grandmother. They never found proof, but they found something easier. They found me. Last Thanksgiving, I was pushed to the children's table. This year, I wasn't even invited. My mother called to tell me not to come, then asked if I would still pay their homeowner's insurance and drop off Grandma Evelyn's cast iron roasting pan before dinner. 2 weeks later, I mailed 4 certified letters. By 9 that night, my phone showed 54 missed calls. Funny thing was, none of them called that many times while my name was being destroyed. My name is Sabine Holloway, and this is how I finally stopped paying for my family's peace. Chapter 1. The Daughter They Didn't Want at the Table. My mother called on Sunday evening while I was sitting at my kitchen table, finishing payroll for a landscaping company that always waited until the last possible hour to send me its timesheets. It was November 9th, 2025, a little after 7, and rain had been tapping against the windows of my house in Cedar Glen since late afternoon. I had a calculator to my right, cold coffee to my left, and 23 employees whose checks had to clear by Friday. My mother's name lit up my phone. Margaret Holloway had a special voice for unpleasant errands. It was bright, gentle, and so carefully arranged that you could hear the rehearsal underneath it. She used that voice to tell me when my father needed surgery, when Aunt Paula wanted help with her taxes, and when my sister had decided I was not welcome at Thanksgiving. "Sabine, honey," she began, "about Thanksgiving this year." I stopped typing. Briar is hosting at our house because her kitchen renovation still isn't finished. She's been under a lot of pressure, and she really wants the day to stay calm. I waited. My mother filled the silence with a small breath. She doesn't want any drama. There it was. Drama. Not the money missing from my grandmother's account. Not the rumor that had been attached to my name for 3 years. Not the clients who had started watching me differently at church. Me. I was the drama. I looked at the payroll spreadsheet in front of me. Numbers were honest in a way people rarely were. When a column did not balance, it did not smile first. "What drama have I ever caused at Thanksgiving, Mom?" She said nothing. "Name 1 year," I continued. 1 dinner, 1 argument I started. The silence lasted long enough for me to hear my parents' television in the background. Finally, she said the sentence that had governed our family for as long as I could remember. "Let's keep it pleasant, Sabine." She ended the call before I could ask what pleasant required from everyone else. 2 weeks later, I would stand inside the Cedar Glen post office with 4 certified envelopes pressed against my chest. By Wednesday afternoon, all 4 would be delivered. By 9 that night, my phone would show 54 missed calls and 28 text messages. Before midnight, my father, my mother, Briar, and Briar's husband Gavin would be standing under the porch light outside my house. They would not come to ask whether I had been innocent. They would come to make me take back what I had sent. But that Sunday night, I knew none of that yet. I was 38 years old and owned Holloway Accounting and Payroll on Sycamore Street. The office had my name on the front window, although most days it was only Nora Chen and me inside. We hired seasonal help during tax season, but the rest of the year we handled everything ourselves. I was known for returning calls, meeting deadlines, and never discussing one client's business with another. People trusted me with payroll, tax returns, bank reconciliations, and the quiet financial mistakes they did not want anyone else to see. My family trusted me with different things. They called when a bill looked wrong. They called when a contract needed reading. They called when someone had forgotten a tax deadline, needed money moved, or wanted a problem solved without having to admit the problem existed. Nora once told me my family treated me like an emergency fund with a phone number. I had laughed. The joke stayed with me because it was too accurate to disappear. 10 minutes after my mother hung up, she sent a text asking me to call back when I had a minute. For one foolish moment, I thought she might apologize. I called. She answered immediately. I just wanted to go over the logistics, she said. Of course she did. She asked whether I could leave Grandma Evelyn's cast iron roasting pan at the back door on Wednesday morning. Briar wanted to start the turkey early, and nobody else had a pan large enough. Then she asked whether I could call Miller's Butcher Shop and place the turkey order through my account because I received a long-standing customer discount. She saved the final request for last. The homeowner's insurance renewal had arrived. $2,180. You'll handle that like usual, won't you, honey? I stared across my kitchen at the dark window over the sink. I was not welcome through the front door, but they still wanted my grandmother's pan delivered through the back. They did not want me at the table, but they still wanted me to pay to protect the house where the table would be set. Mom, I said, I need you to answer one question. Her voice changed slightly. What question? Do you believe I took Grandma Evelyn's money? I heard the clock above her stove. That clock had always been too loud. I remembered it from childhood dinners, ticking through every silence no one in our family wanted to fill. 6 seconds passed. My mother did not say no. She said, "Don't make Thanksgiving about this." Something inside me became very still. For 3 years, I had told myself my mother was confused. I had told myself Briar had planted doubt, and Margaret had simply been too frightened to confront it. That answer showed me something else. My mother was not waiting for the truth. She had already chosen the arrangement she preferred. The family stayed pleasant. Briar stayed protected. I stayed guilty enough to keep everyone quiet. I ended the call and went to the cabinet beneath the pantry shelves. Grandma Evelyn's roasting pan sat on the bottom shelf. It was black cast iron, heavy enough that I needed both hands to lift it. She had used it for more than 50 years and given it to me on Thanksgiving in 2020, when her wrists could no longer manage the weight. Briar had complained jokingly that Grandma was giving away the family silver to the wrong granddaughter. Evelyn had laughed and called her B, the nickname she had used since Briar was little. Then Grandma looked at me and said I was the one who knew how to take care of things. Later that same day, while everyone else argued over seating, she had leaned toward me and said I did not owe anyone a seat at a table. I had not understood her then. I thought she meant I should stop worrying about where Briar placed me. I did not realize she was warning me about the price of belonging. I set the roasting pan on my kitchen table. I had not decided whether I would leave it at the back door. The next morning, Robert and Elaine Miller called my office. They had been clients for 6 years. Elaine said they needed to postpone their tax planning appointment because they were considering a few things after hearing concerns at church. She spoke kindly, which somehow made it worse. After the call, Nora came into my office carrying her laptop. She placed it on my desk and turned the screen toward me. A new 1-star review had appeared on our business page. The reviewer did not mention my grandmother or explain what I had supposedly done. The message was only one sentence. People should not trust this firm with an elderly person's money. Nora looked at me. Do you want me to respond? Not yet, I said. I asked her to take screenshots, record the time, and save the link. That was what I did when something hurt. I documented it. Around lunch, my phone buzzed with a message from my niece Lily. She was 16 and working on a school assignment about family history and personal finance. She asked why Grandma Evelyn had chosen me to manage her accounts instead of my mother or Aunt Paula. I typed several answers and deleted all of them. In the end, I told her that Evelyn wanted someone who checked every bill and asked questions when the numbers did not match. Lily replied a minute later. Mom said all the questions were what caused the trouble. I read the message twice. Briar was teaching her daughter the same lesson our mother had taught us. The person who noticed the problem became the problem. That evening, a delivery driver left a cardboard box outside my front door. The label read, Willow Creek Senior Living Administrative Records. Below that was my name, Sabine Holloway, former financial contact for Evelyn Dorsey. I carried the box inside and placed it on the kitchen table. It sat beside Grandma Evelyn's cast iron roasting pan. One was the inheritance my family still wanted to use. The other held records they had never wanted to read. I stood between them for a long time without opening the box. Chapter 2. The Money That Bought Their Silence. I left the box closed that night because some truths feel heavier before you know their exact weight. The last time money had pulled my family apart, it began with my father collapsing in a parking lot. In February 2021, Thomas Holloway had a heart attack outside the home goods store he had owned for almost 30 years. A customer found him beside his truck, one hand still wrapped around his keys. He needed triple bypass surgery and spent 9 days in the hospital. By the time he came home, my mother had arranged the medications, the follow-up appointments, and the story we were supposed to tell everyone. Dad was recovering. The store had only experienced a temporary slowdown. Everything was under control. The mortgage statements told a different story. My parents were 3 payments behind. I did not learn that because they sat me down and asked for help. My parents did not ask for money directly. They discussed financial disaster loudly enough for me to solve it. At Sunday dinner, my father mentioned that the bank had started using the word foreclosure. My mother said she could not imagine losing the house where she had raised her daughters. Then they looked at their plates and waited. I did what I had always done. I went home, reviewed my savings, opened a personal line of credit, and calculated how much it would take to bring the mortgage current, pay the hospital balance, and keep them stable through the end of the year. The number was $47,500. On March 12, 2021, Thomas and Margaret Holloway sat at my kitchen table and signed a promissory note. The payment was $425 a month. The interest rate was low enough that my father called it insulting. He signed anyway. Briar laughed when she heard about the paperwork. Only you could turn saving your own parents into an audit, she said. Everyone laughed with her. I told myself I did not care. The truth was that I cared more than I admitted. I did not only want my parents to keep their house. I wanted them to remember who had helped them keep it. I wanted the monthly payments to mean that the money had not disappeared into the same place as every other favor I had done for them. For 16 months, the checks arrived. $425 each. $6,800 in total. Then, after July 2022, they stopped. No warning, no explanation, no conversation. The silence around the missing payments became another family arrangement I was expected to understand without naming. I continued paying the homeowner's insurance, $2,180 a year. I told myself it was practical. If the house burned or flooded, everything I had already spent would be at risk. That was true. It was not the whole truth. The whole truth was that I was still trying to keep my place in the family by protecting the house that seemed to define it. While my parents stopped paying me, Briar and Gavin were hiding a crisis of their own. Gavin lost his sales job in October 2021. Briar told everyone he was doing consulting and taking time to choose the right next position. That version sounded polished enough for Christmas cards. The real version was 11 months without steady work. Their mortgage fell behind. Their credit cards crept toward their limits. Lily needed orthodontic treatment. Briar kept posting photographs of family dinners, church fundraisers, and kitchen displays she sold to women who could afford marble countertops. without asking what happened if the next paycheck did not come. She believed appearances were a form of labor. In Breyer's mind, keeping the family looking secure was the same as keeping it secure. Grandma Evelyn had never trusted appearances. She moved into Willow Creek Senior Living in 2019 because she wanted help before she needed to be rescued. She chose Helen Abbott, her oldest friend, as personal representative in her will because she did not want my mother and Aunt Paula fighting over every decision. She chose me to handle her finances while she was alive. Each month, I reviewed the statements, matched Willow Creek charges to invoices, checked insurance reimbursements, and stored receipts. Her checkbook stayed in a locked valuables safe at the facility. Anyone who removed it had to sign a log. Evelyn said she chose me because I would notice when one number was wrong. She also said I was the only person in the family willing to ask a question after everyone else had decided the answer was inconvenient. On September 18, 2022, I sat down with her quarterly statements and found 6 checks I did not recognize. The total was $12,600. I checked the facility invoices twice, then the medical bills, then the insurance records. The checks matched nothing. They were not payments to Willow Creek. They were not for prescriptions. They were not for clothing, gifts, or anything Evelyn usually purchased. I called the bank that afternoon. I called my mother and Aunt Paula. I sent both of them copies of the statements. I suggested hiring an independent forensic accountant so no one could say I was protecting myself. I also contacted Willow Creek and asked them to preserve every record connected to the valuables safe. I was the person who found the missing money. I was the person who reported it. I was the person asking for an investigation. That did not stop my family from looking at me. We met at my parents' house in early October. Breyer sat beside my mother with one hand resting on Margaret's shoulder. She did not accuse me directly. That would have given me something clear to answer. She said I was the only person who managed Evelyn's accounts and that we could not pretend it was irrelevant. Aunt Paula said Grandma was getting older and perhaps I had moved the money for a valid reason and forgotten to record it. I opened the folder in front of me. I had statements, reconciliation sheets, copies of invoices, and a written timeline. Ask me anything, I said. No one touched the folder. My father folded his arms. This family is not a courtroom, he said. The sentence ended the meeting. It did not end the suspicion. Aunt Paula mentioned to someone in the women's ministry that the family was dealing with a sensitive financial matter. By the time the story crossed 3 church pews and 2 kitchens, I was no longer the person who had discovered missing money. I was the accountant suspected of taking it from an elderly woman. In November, the Ohio Board of Accountancy received an anonymous email questioning my professional ethics. I was asked to provide records. I did. The matter was closed in January 2023 without action. There was no evidence I had violated anything. The people in Cedar Glen remembered the word investigation. Very few remembered the words closed without action. Grandma Evelyn died in April 2023. She was 88. Daniel Keene handled the probate, and Helen served as personal representative. The final accounting was approved by the probate court that November. Every transaction I had made was supported by an invoice or receipt. The missing $12,600 appeared separately as unauthorized withdrawals, source unresolved. My mother and Aunt Paula received copies because they were beneficiaries. Neither called me. The court had cleared my name. My family behaved as if the court had simply failed to understand us. At Thanksgiving that year, my mother placed me at the smaller table with the children. The next year, she suggested I come only for dessert. In 2024, she offered to set aside a plate for me to collect later. Each year, my place at the table became smaller. The requests did not. They still asked me to review bills, prepare taxes, order the turkey, bring Grandma's pan, and pay the insurance. My presence became optional. My usefulness remained mandatory. The cardboard box stayed closed until after midnight. When I finally cut the tape, most of what I found was ordinary. Care plans. Menus Grandma had marked with a pencil. A photograph of her at a summer picnic wearing sunglasses too large for her face. Medication invoices. The faded recipe card for her turkey brine. Near the bottom was a photocopy of the valuables safe log. I almost placed it aside with the other administrative forms. Then I saw the name. B. Kent, granddaughter. The checkbook had been signed out on June 6, 2022. It had been returned on August 17th. B was what Grandma Evelyn had called Breyer since she was a child. I pulled the old bank statements from my office file and laid them beside the log. The first unfamiliar check had been issued less than 2 weeks after Breyer took the checkbook. For 3 years, my family's story had carried only my name. Now the paper on my kitchen table carried hers. Chapter 3. The Records They Refused to Read. I did not call Breyer that night. A signature in a safe log proved access, not theft, and I had spent too many years being judged by implication to start doing the same thing to someone else. I did not call the police. I did not post the page online. I did not send it to Lily. The next morning, I called Willow Creek Senior Living and asked for Carla Ruiz, the administrative records manager whose name appeared on the cover sheet inside the box. Carla returned my call just before noon. I need to confirm a name in one of your valuables logs, I said. Which resident? Evelyn Dorsey. I heard keys moving beneath her fingers. What name are you looking at? B. Kent. Carla paused. That was Breyer Holloway Kent. She used B on several visitor forms. Granddaughter. I closed my eyes. Was the checkbook actually released to her? Yes. Our procedure required the family member to sign the item out, list the relationship, and sign again when it was returned. The log you received was an administrative copy. I can provide a certified copy from the archived record. Please do. Carla's voice softened. Is there a problem? There may have been one for 3 years. She did not ask for details. That was one of the things I had come to appreciate about professionals. They knew when a question belonged to someone else. Daniel Keene met me the following afternoon in his probate office near the county courthouse. His conference room smelled like old paper and coffee that had been reheated too many times. I placed the safe log beside the bank statements. Daniel studied the dates before reaching for Evelyn's probate file. I still have the check images, he said. The copies he produced were clearer than the ones I had received from the bank in 2022. 2 of the larger checks had been processed through the mortgage servicer connected to Breyer and Gavin's house. One check for $2,700 had gone to the orthodontic office, where Lily received treatment. The remaining checks matched a utility company and a grocery account near Breyer's neighborhood. The money had not disappeared into some anonymous account. It had traveled into Breyer's life, one bill at a time. I placed Evelyn's recipe card beside the check images. Her real handwriting had become shaky in her final years. The letters leaned slightly to the right, with small breaks where her hand had trembled. The signatures on the checks were smooth and leaned left. Daniel examined both. They are inconsistent, he said. That is not the same as proving forgery. I know. If this becomes litigation, we may need a handwriting expert, or an admission. The log and endorsements establish access and benefit, but we should be careful about what we claim. Careful was a language I understood. Daniel searched his electronic archive and found an email Willow Creek had sent during probate. It mentioned that a family member had removed Evelyn's checkbook during the same summer the withdrawals occurred. The email did not include the person's full name. Why wasn't this followed up? I asked. Daniel removed his glasses. We had no complete log, no clear recipient information, and your father declined the family meeting. The estate accounting identified the withdrawals. I completed the probate work. And then you decided the rest was a family problem. His face tightened. Yes. I looked at the court file between us. I don't need you to fix my family, Daniel. I need the records to stop being buried under the word peace. He nodded slowly. If Helen agrees, and the certified log holds up, we can evaluate reopening the estate for the limited purpose of recovering the money. By the time I returned to Holloway Accounting and Payroll, Robert and Elaine Miller were sitting in the reception area. Nora gave me a look that warned me before I entered my office. Robert held a folder in both hands. Elaine kept her purse on her lap. We've decided to move our accounts to a CPA in Westfield, Robert said. There has never been a problem with your work, Elaine added quickly. That sentence hurt more than an accusation. Then why are you leaving? Elaine looked down at her purse. At our age, we can't have question marks around money. I could have shown them the probate order. I could have told them the board had closed its matter without action. Instead, I thanked them for 6 years and arranged a transfer of their records. After they left, Nora shut my office door. She placed a printed page on my desk. 2 prospective clients had canceled their consultations. Andrea Pike, who owned a home care staffing company, had emailed to say she needed more time before signing our payroll proposal. Her company served elderly clients, and she had heard an ethical concern connected to my name. Nora had made a spreadsheet. Lost annual revenue, at-risk proposals, hours spent documenting the review, potential damage if existing clients began asking questions. I looked up at her. You made a damage report. You taught me to quantify a problem before deciding whether it can be ignored. This is still my family. No, Nora said. It was your family when the rumor only hurt you. Now it is reaching this office. Silence is no longer just your personal choice. That evening, Breyer posted a Thanksgiving collage online. There were gold leaves, folded napkins, and a caption about being grateful for a peaceful table. Aunt Paula shared it with a message about family unity. I sat at my kitchen table and drafted a response. I attached the court-approved accounting, the safe log, the check images, a short explanation of the timeline. Every sentence was accurate. Nora read it over the phone. There is nothing false in it, she said. My cursor hovered over the publish button. Then I pictured Lily learning what her mother had done through comments from church members and distant relatives. I pictured Evelyn's final years becoming content for people who liked drama more than truth. I deleted the post. Breyer knew how to control a story. I knew how to create a record. The next afternoon, Lily texted me. Is B. Kent my mom? I sat very still before answering. What did you see? A paper on the kitchen counter. Mom took it away when I asked. Did she explain it? She said I shouldn't make things worse before Thanksgiving. I did not send Lily the log. I did not tell her what I suspected. I only told her the adults needed to handle it. Breyer called 10 minutes later. What are you telling my daughter? Nothing. She knows about the log. She saw it in your house. Stay away from Lily, Sabine. I have never told her who took Evelyn's money. The line went quiet. Breyer did not say she had never taken it. She only asked what I had told Lily. That silence was not proof, but it told me where her fear lived. She was not asking whether I believed the documents. She was trying to calculate how much I knew. I saw Aunt Paula outside Cedar Glen Community Church the next morning. She was loading donation boxes into her car. When she noticed me, she closed the trunk too quickly. "Your mother is already upset," she said. "If you involve lawyers, it could break her." "Did Grandma ever tell you Briar took her checkbook?" Paula's face changed. Only for a second. It was enough. "She mentioned something once," she said. "What exactly?" "She said B had taken the checkbook, but Evelyn was getting older. She mixed up dates." "Did you check?" "No." "Did you tell anyone when the family decided I was responsible?" Paula looked toward the church doors. "Briar had Lily. Gavin was struggling. You have always known how to take care of yourself." There it was. The reason families choose certain people to carry the blame. Not because they are the weakest, because everyone assumes they will survive it. Rebecca Sloan reviewed the documents in her office 2 days later. She separated them into 3 neat stacks. The first concerned my parents' promissory note. "The note is still potentially enforceable," she said. "The principal balance is $40,700. We send a formal demand before discussing further action." The second stack concerned my business. "The court accounting and documented losses support a cease and desist. We stay precise. We do not accuse anyone of a crime we cannot yet prove." The third stack belonged to Evelyn's estate. "The $12,600 is not yours to collect personally. Helen and Daniel will need to handle the probate process. I can coordinate and preserve the evidence." "Will Briar be arrested?" Rebecca looked directly at me. "I am not going to promise you that. The realistic goals are correction, repayment, protection of your business, and stopping further statements. Litigation remains an option if they refuse." I asked her to prepare the letters, but not send them yet. I made one final binder instead. The court accounting went first, then the certified safe log, then the check images, transaction dates, Daniel's letter, and a neutral summary. I drove to my parents' house that afternoon. My father came to the door, but did not open the screen. "I need 10 minutes, I said. "No accusations, just documents." "You'll not bring lawyers into this family." "There are no lawyer letters in this binder." He looked at it as though it might explode. "These are the records you refused to read 3 years ago." Thomas did not reach for them. I placed the binder on the welcome mat. "It will still be true whether you read it or not." The next afternoon, the binder was in my mailbox, wrapped with a rubber band. A yellow sticky note was attached to the cover in my mother's handwriting. "Please keep this pleasant." Before leaving the binder, I had placed a small tab slightly outside the edge of the first page. Now the tab had been pushed back inside. The first page carried the probate court stamp. The second page was the safe log with B. Kent's name. Every page after that remained exactly where I had placed it. My mother had opened the binder. She had looked far enough to know Briar was connected to the checkbook. Then she had stopped. For 3 years, I had told myself Margaret did not know the truth. Standing beside my mailbox with the unopened pages in my hands, I understood something worse. She had seen the door leading to it and chosen to close it. Chapter 4. 4 certified letters. That realization did not make me angry right away. It made me tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that comes when you finally stop arguing with a pattern you have spent years trying to explain away. By Saturday evening, the binder was still sitting on the table near the Willow Creek box. My mother left a voicemail at 7:12. She did not mention the court order. She did not mention Breyer's name in the safe log. She did not ask about Robert and Elaine Miller or the review attacking my business. She sounded almost cheerful. "Sabine, honey, just a reminder that Breyer needs Grandma's roasting pan before 10 on Wednesday. Leave it at the back door so no one gets upset." There was a pause long enough for paper to move near the phone. "Oh, and the homeowner's insurance renewal came. $2,180. You'll take care of it like always, won't you? Love you." I listened twice. The second time, I did not hear a request. I heard the entire arrangement. They did not want me inside the house. They wanted the house protected by my money. They did not want me at the table. They wanted the pan I had inherited placed on it. They did not want my questions. They wanted every useful thing my questions had allowed me to build. On Monday morning, Andrea Pike sent an email to the office. She was postponing the payroll contract until what she called the ethical concern involving an elderly client had been resolved. Nora stood in my doorway while I read it. Then she placed her damage report on my desk. The Millers' annual fees were gone. Andrea's contract was delayed. 2 consultations had been canceled. The review remained public. Hours we should have spent serving clients had been spent saving screenshots and documenting rumors. "This is not only hurting you anymore," Nora said. "I know. Do you?" I looked up. She tapped the folder Rebecca Sloan had prepared. "Evidence does not protect anyone if you keep it in a drawer." Rebecca had drafted 4 letters. The first was addressed to Thomas Holloway. The second was addressed separately to Margaret Holloway. They covered the same debt, but went to each borrower individually. The promissory note was in default. The unpaid principal balance was $40,700. They could resume payments at $425 a month. The accumulated interest would be waived if they signed the schedule within 30 days. I would stop paying the homeowner's insurance at the next renewal. There would be no lien, acceleration, or foreclosure as long as they honored the agreement. The third letter was for Breyer. It demanded that she stop making or encouraging statements connecting me to Evelyn's missing money. It required her to preserve financial records and send a written correction to the people who had received the earlier version. It also informed her that Helen and Daniel were evaluating steps to recover $12,600 for the estate. Rebecca offered repayment as an alternative to litigation. The fourth letter was for Paula. It included the probate accounting and required her to stop repeating claims the court records did not support. It asked her to identify the people she had spoken to and correct anything she had said within the church finance committee. The letters were calm. There were no accusations written in anger, no childhood grievances, no description of the children's table or the dessert invitations, only balances, dates, documents, and choices. I signed each one. My hand did not shake. On Monday, November 24th, I carried the envelopes into the Cedar Glen post office. Marcy Doyle was working the second counter. She had handled my business mail for years and knew I preferred tracking on anything involving tax documents. "Certified with return receipts?" she asked. Yes. There were 6 people behind me. Twice I looked toward the door. Some part of me still expected my mother to call and say she had finished the binder. I imagined her voice admitting she had seen Breyer's name and understood what the court accounting meant. I imagined my father asking me to come over and sit at the kitchen table. None of that happened. What had happened was simpler. My mother had opened 2 pages, closed the binder, and called about the insurance. Marcy pressed the labels onto the envelopes. 4 stamps came down against the counter. She slid 4 green receipts toward me. Anything else? No, I said. That is everything. Monday passed without a call. Tuesday did too. I worked. Breyer posted photographs of folded napkins, polished serving dishes, and little cards with guests' names written in gold ink. Lily did not message me. My parents did not acknowledge the letters were coming. By Tuesday night, I began to wonder whether they would refuse to open certified mail the same way they had refused the binder. At 11:46 Wednesday morning, my phone displayed the notification. Delivered. 4 of 4. I was meeting with a contractor who had brought 3 years of receipts in an old shoebox. I turned the phone face down and continued explaining the difference between business expenses and personal withdrawals. At 12:17, Margaret called. Before her call finished ringing, Thomas called, then Paula, then Breyer. By 1 o'clock, I had 8 missed calls. At 3, there were 21. By 6, the number had reached 40. The calls did not come only from the 4 people who received letters. Paula had contacted 2 relatives. A cousin who had not spoken to me in more than a year sent a message saying he could not believe I was threatening my parents during the holidays. Another relative asked whether I intended to make an elderly couple homeless. My father called 7 times. My mother called 9. Paula called 6. Breyer called 5. Gavin called twice and left no message. No one asked whether the court accounting was real. No one asked whether Breyer's name was truly on the log. No one asked whether I had been innocent. They asked why I had chosen Thanksgiving. They asked why I had involved the church. They asked what I had told Lily. They asked what other records I possessed. For 3 years, my family had been able to tolerate the consequences as long as they belonged to me. It took less than an afternoon for them to panic when the consequences were addressed to their own names. Baila's third voicemail sounded more frightened than angry. Sabine, Reverend Samuel has asked me not to handle the weekend donations until the committee reviews this. Do you understand what you have done? I almost called back to tell her I understood exactly. She had used her position around other people's money to make questions gather around my name. Now, one documented letter had placed questions around hers. Reverend Samuel had not removed her from the committee. He had only asked her to step away temporarily until the facts were clear. It was more caution than anyone had offered me. At Breyer's house, the letter created a different kind of problem. Gavin had finally seen the check images. One payment carried the name of their mortgage servicer. Another matched Lily's $2,700 orthodontic bill. According to the short voicemail he eventually left, Breyer had always described the money as a family loan. That evening, he confronted her. I learned the details later, but I could hear part of the argument behind one of Breyer's calls. You said someone helped us. Someone did. Who? We needed the money. That is not an answer. Breyer's voice rose. Why did you never ask who loaned it to us? Where were the papers, Gavin? When were we supposed to pay it back? He went quiet. The truth was uncomfortable, but simple. Gavin had not known exactly what Breyer had done. He had known enough to avoid asking. At 6:34, Lily texted me. Is Mom's name on the log real? I stared at the message. Before I answered, another appeared. She says I'm making everything worse. Then a third. She told me to keep it pleasant. The phrase had moved into the next generation. It was no longer only being used to keep me quiet. Now it was being handed to Lily as a warning against asking what her mother had done. I replied that the name in the certified record was real, but the adults needed to handle the rest. I told her none of this was her responsibility. After the office closed, Nora brought takeout to my house. We sat at the kitchen table between Evelyn's pan and the returned binder. By 9, the phone showed 54 missed calls and 28 messages. We played the voicemails one at a time. My father was furious. Lawyers, Sabine. Against your own parents. Call me tonight. My mother sounded smaller. Whatever you think happened, we can discuss it after Thanksgiving. Please do not do this now. Paula talked about the church committee. Gavin said only that he needed to speak with Briar before he spoke to me. Briar's voicemail was the shortest. Call me before Mom and Dad see everything else. Nora put down her fork. She did not say it was false. No. None of them did. At 11:38, headlights swept across my front curtains. A car stopped in the driveway. Thomas stepped out first. Margaret followed, clutching her coat closed at the neck. Briar got out from the back seat. Gavin remained behind the wheel for several seconds before opening his door. He stayed beside the car, separate from the others. Nora took her coat and left through the side entrance. I opened the front door, but did not invite anyone inside. Instead, I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. My father came to the bottom of the steps. His face was red, his shoulders rigid. What do you think you're doing to this family? I looked at the 4 people who had called me 54 times in one evening. Not one of them had called that often during the 3 years my name was being destroyed. Chapter 5. I kept my name. My father climbed the first step and pointed toward the closed door behind me. This is your home, he said, but we are still your family. He said family as if the word canceled every number written in the letters. Lawyers do not belong in this, he continued. Thanksgiving is tomorrow. Your mother has been crying all day, and now you are threatening the house we raised you in. I kept my hands at my sides. No one is taking your house. That is not what the letter says. The letter says you owe $40,700. It says you can resume the same monthly payment you already agreed to. It says there will be no lien, acceleration, or foreclosure if you follow the schedule. Thomas stared at me. A good daughter would not do this the night before Thanksgiving. I looked at the porch railing between us. For 3 years, you have kept me outside this family. Tonight, you are standing outside my door because the consequences finally reached yours. Margaret made a small sound behind him. Thomas demanded that I tear up the letters. He said I could come to Thanksgiving the next day. Everyone would move on. My place at the table was still there. For one dangerous second, the offer touched the part of me that had spent years waiting to hear those words. Then I understood what he was offering. Not an apology, a transaction. Briar stepped past him. Her face looked different without the expression she used for photographs and church events. Her mouth trembled, but her eyes stayed fixed on mine. Gavin was out of work for almost 11 months, she said. Gavin looked down toward the driveway. We were behind on the mortgage. The cards were nearly maxed out. Lily needed braces. We were going to lose the house. Margaret reached for Briar, but Briar pulled away. I took Grandma Evelyn's checkbook, she said. I wrote the checks. The night seemed to narrow around us. She admitted using the money for mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, and Lily's orthodontist. She said she had not entered the family meeting planning to blame me. Everyone already knew I managed Evelyn's accounts. Everyone looked toward me before Briar had to say anything direct. She simply did not correct them. At first, she told herself she would confess once Gavin found work, then once the mortgage was current, then after Christmas, then after Evelyn died. Each month made the truth more expensive. Eventually, protecting the image of her family became more important than protecting my name. I understood the fear she described. That was what made it hurt more. I had emptied my savings to keep our parents from losing their house. I knew how quickly walls and a roof could begin to feel like proof that a family still existed. Desperation explains the first check, I said. It does not explain the next 3 years. Breyer looked away. You watched me lose my place at the table. You watched clients question me. You watched Mom stop defending me. You knew what everyone believed. I thought you could handle it, she said. The sentence was almost identical to Paula's. That was the family logic. I had been chosen because they believed I would survive. I turned toward Gavin. He stayed beside the car until I said his name. Then he came closer. I did not know she copied Evelyn's signature, he said. Did you believe it was a legitimate family loan? He hesitated. No. Did you ever ask who had loaned you $12,600? No. Did you ask where the paperwork was, or when repayment would begin? No. He rubbed a hand across his face. I knew something did not make sense. I did not ask because the mortgage was paid, and I did not want the answer. Then you benefited from the silence too. Gavin nodded once. He agreed to sign a repayment agreement with Breyer, not because he had suddenly become brave, because the documents connected the money to his home, his bills, and his family. My father tried to interrupt, but I raised one hand. The numbers were simple. My parents had borrowed $47,500. They had repaid $6,800. They still owed $40,700. I had paid $8,720 in homeowner's insurance over 4 years. $12,600 had left Evelyn's account. One long-term client had already left my firm. Another contract was being delayed. My name had carried an accusation for 3 years. Money could be repaid in monthly installments. A reputation did not come with a payment plan. Margaret stepped toward me and took my hand. Her fingers were cold. She used the voice she had used when I was a child with a fever. Your chair is still there, she said. Come tomorrow. Breyer can tell everyone the bank processed the checks incorrectly. No one has to be blamed. By Christmas, this will be behind us. I could see the kitchen without turning my head. Steam against the windows. My mother calling everyone to the table. Evelyn's pan on the stove. For a moment, I wanted that picture so badly that I could almost accept the price. Then I understood they were not offering to return my name. They were offering to clean it with another lie. A faceless bank would become responsible, so no one in the family had to be. The chair was not being returned. It was being sold back to me in exchange for the evidence and my silence. I pulled my hand free. The letters stay. Thomas and Margaret had to sign a new schedule beginning December 15th and pay $425 each month. They could pay more whenever they wanted. We would review the balance each year. As long as they complied, I would not accelerate the debt, place a lien, or pursue foreclosure. They would pay their own homeowner's insurance beginning with the current renewal. Breyer had to send a written correction by December 5th, stating that I had not made or authorized the withdrawals. She had to stop every suggestion that I had taken Evelyn's money. Breyer and Gavin would pay $600 a month into the estate account for 21 months. Paula would correct the story with the people she had told and with the church finance committee. If everyone complied, I would not post the records online or pursue anything beyond what was necessary to protect my business and recover the money. I am not taking anyone's roof, I said. I am stopping the payments that allowed those roofs to stand on my silence. Margaret began crying. Why now? She asked. Why Thanksgiving? Because Pleasant was the most expensive thing this family ever bought, I said. I kept every receipt. I looked at all 4 of them. You can keep the peaceful table. I am keeping my name. Thomas turned away first. Margaret followed. Gavin walked back toward the car. Briar remained at the bottom of the steps. "You could have kept paying quietly," she said. "They probably would have invited you back by Easter." "I know." "Then why do this?" "Because this time it had to be certified." She watched me for several seconds. "The correction will go out Monday," she said. It was not an apology. For Briar, a promise with a date was the closest thing to a signature. The next day, I kept Evelyn's pan. I used her recipe card to brine a 13-pound turkey. Nora came with her husband. Gloria Vega brought sweet potatoes and apologized for bringing too much, which meant she had brought exactly enough. I set 5 places. The 5th chair stayed empty until 2:15, when the doorbell rang. Lily stood outside holding a bag of dinner rolls. "Mom thinks I am at Hannah's house," she said. "You need to tell both your parents where you are." She sent the message from my entryway. Gavin replied that I should bring her home before 7. Lily sat in the empty chair. After dinner, she carried Evelyn's pan to the sink and washed it without being asked. That was when I understood inheritance had very little to do with who controlled the family photograph. It belonged to the person willing to know the truth and still care for what remained. Briar sent the correction the following Monday. It stated that I had not made or authorized the withdrawals, that she was responsible, and that she and Gavin were repaying the estate. Helen and Daniel filed the limited petition needed to reopen the estate for recovery. No one was arrested overnight. Rebecca kept the evidence in case the agreement was broken. On December 15th, my parents signed the payment schedule. The first check for $425 arrived on time. The memo line was blank. I did not mistake it for an apology. I recorded the payment. Paula sent corrections to the people she remembered telling. Reverend Samuel asked her to step away from handling church funds for 6 months while someone else took over. She was not publicly humiliated. She temporarily lost the kind of financial trust she had helped take from me. The 1-star review was removed after the platform determined the writer had never been a client. Robert and Elaine Miller returned in December. Elaine admitted they had allowed a rumor to make the decision for them. Andrea Pike signed the payroll agreement after reviewing the probate accounting and Briar's correction. My business did not recover in a single day. My name came back one person, one contract, and one acknowledgement at a time. My mother sent a Christmas card signed by her and Thomas. There was no apology inside. I placed it on the mantel anyway. I still loved her. I still knew she had opened 2 pages of my binder and chosen not to read the rest. I no longer needed love and truth to live inside the same arrangement. Lily began texting me about algebra and asked whether she could visit the office to learn how account reconciliation worked. Evelyn's pan stayed in my kitchen. My parents continued making payments. The estate received its first repayment from Briar and Gavin. Some Sundays, my phone did not ring. The new quiet still cost something. For the first time, I was not paying for it with money, service, dignity, or silence. I had spent years believing steady responsibility could purchase steady love. Briar had believed a beautiful enough story could keep a family intact. In the end, the numbers told us both what we had avoided for years. A chair purchased with money and silence never truly belonged to the person sitting in it. My family kept the peace they had chosen. I kept my name. If you had been standing on that porch, would you have chosen the chair at the table or your own name? Share your answer and stay with this channel for more stories about women who stopped paying the price for someone else's peace.